So we've gotten a lot of Alpinist models in the last few years, too many if you ask me, and I've always thought the best was still the OG SARB 017. That was until now. I saw the new SBP 210 on someone's wrist at a recent watch meetup and was so blown away, I went home and ordered one myself. But before we talk about this watch, let's go back. Let's go way back to the beginning of my watch collecting journey, and let me tell you about another SARB that sort of started all of this for me. I'm Max and this is Watch Crunch. WatchCrunch.com is a new online platform for talking watches that combines the best of IG, Reddit, traditional forums, all with minimal snobbery and maximum watch enthusiasm. Okay, so what was my first mechanical watch? Well, about a decade ago, I was rocking like a Fossil or a Diesel. Here, I think I have a picture of it. It was of course a cheap quartz, but I really liked the Panda chrono design, and come on, I didn't know better. So I was in the admin office of our grad program, and a guy behind the desk asked me, hey, what watch is that? So I showed it to him, and I saw his face turn from curiosity
now we're talking
to disappointment. But I wasn't deterred, so I asked him, what's a good watch? And he told me, go buy a Seiko. So I went home and ordered a SARB 033. It looked like any other watch for me, honestly, but something funny happened the first year that I wore that watch. I slowly began to appreciate the little details on the case, the curvature of the lugs, the display case back, and after that first year, I had been bitten by the bug and I was ready to dive head over heels into this little hobby of ours. The first thing I did was collect all the SARBs I can get my hands on. I got that cream 035, which was so classy, and that bracelet wasn't half bad for a Seiko. Then came the green SARB 17 Alpinist, which was a very special watch with that mesmerizing green sunburst style and the 3468 numerals, all wrapped in the history of the Japanese mountaineers who surveyed and explored the undulating terrain of that country. I also learned that the Alpinist line started way back in the 60s, and we have some cool vintage models like the Red Alpinist and the Laurel Alpinist. Now, I've had a few other Alpinists in the interim, including the Ginza Special with that mosaic dial. Was that blue or green? I'm still not sure. I think I might be a little colorblind in that range. And that leads us to the SBP 210. Now, there is just something special about the combination of green and gold that just makes me smile. Maybe it's because the two colors are next to each other on the color wheel, or that they're both colors found in nature. And also, this watch scratches that itch of the rose gold day-date that makes me drool every time I look at it. Released in mid-2021, the SBP 210 isn't brand new, but for me, it kind of got overlooked in a sea of Alpinists. Seiko's photos for this watch also makes it look super bright, but in the metal, it's really a lot more tame. And in the couple weeks I've had it, it has even dulled out a little bit, making it a little less garish on the wrist. Now, you're probably smart enough to figure out that we're not getting a real gold case for 800 bucks. It's a stainless case with a gold colored finishing applied over the surface. Will that finish wear through over time? I guess we'll find out. Let me know in the comments if you know how this finish is applied. And you know what? While you're down there, do me a favor and tap that like button. It'll really help out the channel. The sizing of the Alpinist is in that Goldilocks zone for a lot of wrists. It's 39.5 millimeters wide, not counting that robust crown guard, and 12.5 millimeters thick if you don't count the Cyclops. Now, you guys know my feelings on Cyclopses. I think they should all die in a fiery death, unless it's a Datejust. This case is definitely chunky, but like a sports watch ought to feel without being unwieldy. Seiko is really good about keeping their watches compact, and this one comes in a manageable lug-to-lug of 46. Now, one detail I love is that they kept a brushed finish on the bezel. This is in keeping with the sporty vibe, and also, can you imagine how gaudy a polished gold bezel would look on a mountaineer's watch? Speaking of which, don't forget that the Alpinist party trick is an internal compass, which you can rotate with a secondary crown at the fore. This allows hikers to orient to cardinal directions with the help of the sun. Now at this point I can wax on about how the dial looks like a beautiful emerald that is so distracting that when I drive with this watch I'm a hazard on the road, or that these bold cathedral hands shouldn't really work on a sports watch but just do. But you know what? By now you know that this green sunburst style is really the star of the show. Now people have complained that the letter X for Pro Specs on the dial is ugly, but printed in this sort of dull gold color, it's a lot more subtle. Now I do wish that they had kept the date wheel black like the 017. Yes, it might be a tad harder to read, but it's also dead sexy in my eyes. The Alpinist runs the automatic 6R35, which you can see through a display caseback. And that caseback incidentally doesn't take on that gold plating. This movement is an upgraded version of the base 4R. It still ticks at 3 Hz, but has a boosted power reserve of 70 hours. Accuracy is between -5 and +25 a day. I mean, it's not great, it's not a total dog, it's kind of what you expect at this price tier. And now I can hear you say in the comments, but Max, you used to be able to get the Alpinist for sub 400 on Amazon. But times have changed. I mean, gas was also $2 and Facebook was a great social media app. And you do actually get more for your money. I mean, remember how terrible the original Sarb strap was? I mean, that thing had the consistency of old beef jerky and kind of wore like one too. This new calf leather offering is a huge surprise for me. Well done, Seiko, you finally realized that straps are not afterthoughts. It's a dark brown calf leather with tasteful beige stitching that all comes together with a milled gold deployment buckle engraved with the company's name. Interestingly, the strap comes threaded the opposite way, with the strap end pointing towards you. And after wearing it for a while, I'm starting to realize that this is the right way to do it. It keeps that end from catching on things throughout the day. Okay, so a new thing we're gonna try in my videos is to give every watch I review a score. We'll call it a crunch score. The score will have 5 components, each one with a maximum of 10 points. So let's take the SBP 210 for a run. In the category of design, I'm gonna give this watch an 8.5 because I love its original bold styling. In terms of fit and finish, we give it a 7. The case has nice intersecting surfaces and is well put together, but we're not talking high horology here. And plus, I think for me, a watch without a bracelet will never score a perfect 10. The movement gets a 5. It's a workhorse with an extended power reserve, but not much more than that. The history, it gets a 7.5. Seiko gets credit for its vertical manufacturing, and the Alpinist definitely carries its own lure. And lastly, on value, it gets a 7. Good, but not as good as it used to be. So that gives the Gold Alpinist a crunch score of 34.5. It's not bad. And let me know if you guys want me to do this with past watches I've reviewed for comparison's sake. I still miss my old Sarbs. I gave the 033 to my dad and the 035 to a friend. This way I can still have visitation rights once in a while. But these watches will always have a nostalgia factor for me as they remind me of the early days of my watch journey. But what was your first mechanical watch? Share your watch origin story on watchcrunch.com. I'll leave a link in the pinned comments below. As always, stay crunchy. I'll see you in the next one.